in this debate here in San Jose, what we're talking about is really semantics. It's the difference between Saigon and Little Saigon.
Right.
I wonder if you can talk about the symbolism of Little Saigon for Vietnamese, even if they're not in Orange County.
Well, I think Little Saigon is one of those catchy phrases that many different communities have used throughout the world. So it's not just the fact that it's a little, but it's the fact that those two words go together that represents the united front from Australia to France to Switzerland to the United States to Virginia, Texas, Washington, all those places. So what holds us all together. That Little Saigon represents the anti-communist efforts that people have done since 1975, since they won when they left their country, right? So I think for them, that's why it's so important, the Little Saigon, not just Saigon, but little, because it unites us with everybody around the globe that have been displaced, either overseas Vietnamese or refugees in the case of Vietnamese Americans. There's a strong generational divide, but it's not the way that we think about it in terms of generational divide. What I mean by that is that for the Vietnamese Americans, for the elder Vietnamese Americans, one of the focus that they have is actually to somehow remember Vietnam, one, and to try to free Vietnam. So for them, it is very, very important to somehow remember their homeland, to somehow remember what it was like, and to somehow get rid of the Vietnamese, because after all, that's the reasons why we are here, right? We were taken over by the Vietnamese communists. So for them, that's their focus, that's their energy. Simultaneously with that, though, I think for them, it was very important for their kids to really focus on doing well in school, on getting professions that will pay them well so that they can establish themselves, because in their parents' eyes, they sacrificed a great deal for them to be here. And so for them, that's a reward. Now, in terms of the Vietnamese Americans, the younger generation, I think there are two things that's different. One is that a lot of them, all that they know is actually the United States of America. So they think of themselves as Americans with Vietnamese ancestry, and therefore, when they go to school, when they begin their profession, everything is surrounded with non-Vietnamese Americans. And so that's one focus. The other one is Vietnam is their homeland. So there's this romantic notion of what it's like, but they're not as emotionally charged as their parents or grandparents are, because when they came here as younger or when they were born here, that's all that they know. So that generation gap is the understanding about what it means to be Vietnamese or what Vietnam means to them.
The Vietnamese government has tried to really reach out to Vietnamese here in America. Are those advances welcome?
Well, I think that it's a mixed message, right? I think that in some ways they are welcoming Vietnamese overseas to come back and help build the country. On the other hand, I think there's also some limits. So as long as you do not advocate for the overthrow of the government, as long as you don't participate in the policies, in the politics of the country, the internal workings of the country, then I think that they would welcome you, because it generates jobs, it brings in incomes, and does a lot of other economic advance. On the other hand, I think that they would probably crack down on those who, if and when they decide to say, you know what, we need more freedom, we need more democracy, we need more X, Y, and Z, that's when I think the tension will take place. So I think that the Vietnamese Communist government is smart in the sense that they want to be able to generate income for themselves and to show the world that they're actually open, because they're inviting Vietnamese Americans and Vietnamese overseas. On the other hand, I think that there is a strong sense that if you cross over that one line, that you're not going to be tolerated.
So do you think a true reconciliation between the Vietnamese American community here and the Vietnamese government will ever happen?
I think that for the elderly Vietnamese Americans, that's not going to happen. For them, I think that for the last 30 years or 35 years, they've been fighting for and will only accept when the Vietnamese communist is overthrown, when there's an open society, a democratic society, and that people are able to freely move about and do all the things that a free country should be able to do. My hope, though, is that for the second generation, the younger Vietnamese Americans, they will find a way to go back and help work with it, use their skills, their talent, and develop a homeland that they can be proud of, that they can be integrated into the world economy.